This is going to be part 2, right? We're going to have...
This will be part 2. I'll make
all
sure.
right. I don't want these.
Yeah. I'll keep them separate.
Because there's spirituality and then there's reality, which I call a conspiracy world. Off camera, after we finish that first part, Mark and I just were having a parting exchange, and Mark's saying he's a good guy, whether God exists.
I'm not saying I'm a good guy. I wouldn't say that.
Well, you didn't say that.
I would never use those words.
Fair enough.
I just treat people with kindness, compassion, and I treat them with respect.
And what would everybody say to that? Mark?
Yeah, whatever, but I'm not going to...
You hear it all the time.
I don't like to describe myself.
You're self-deprecating.
Yes.
You are a good man. Everybody can see that.
Yeah.
Accept it. I know you wouldn't say it yourself, but everybody loves you for the work you do. Anyway, so we're talking about God, and Mark says, if there's a God there, doesn't matter because I'm going to be who I am. And I said, well, what if the story's true and there's consequences? And then he's like, Mark says, well, what if the earth was flat? What does that matter? And I was like, oh gosh, he opened a can of worms. I said, it does have consequences.
So you're a flat earther?
I am a flat earther. I was not born a flat earther. I went to public high school. I went through the same indoctrination as everybody else. I don't have a college level indoctrination, but that's even worse. Thank God I didn't go to college and get a college level indoctrination. All right, flat earth, the fundamental argument of it, right? This is a sphere. An orange is a sphere. A basketball is a sphere. They say the earth is a sphere, right? The fundamental argument with the flat earth is that if you draw a line this way, a latitudinal line across the top of this sphere, right on the edge, and you draw a longitudinal line down this side, you can measure that curvature going down. There's a formula for measuring that. And it's on the curvature for the Earth, it's 8 inches squared per mile. So the first mile, the curvature should be 8 inches, right? And it continues to drop squared after that. It's so a second mile, 2 times 2 times 8, right? 16 inches, and you keep going squared. And that's a legitimate trigonometrical formula. You can measure that. That's a fixed thing, right? We all like math, right? Because it tells the truth. You can't change that. And flat earthers have been taking that formula and putting it to the test. I'm assuming you've been to Lake Tahoe.
I have.
All right, so the way the Earth is set up, right? You have the equator in the middle on a spherical. You have the equator in the middle, right?
Yep.
We're in the northern hemisphere. The curve should be going south to north, right? Yeah.
I get it.
You should not be able to see the north shore of Lake Tahoe from the south shore. It should be 280 feet underneath the curve. It should disappear over the curve, but it doesn't. That's the fundamental argument, is that people can test the curvature and it's not there. It's the same thing, right? They used to teach us in, like, you find it in Princeton University textbooks, right? Is the way that we know that the Earth is curved is you'd go to the seashore and you'd watch a ship going over the horizon and it would disappear hull first, right? First, the hull goes beneath the curve and then it keeps going down and down and down until the last thing you see is the tip of the mast, right? And they're saying the reason that that effect happens is that you are seeing the ship go over the curve. But what's really happening is that you have, it's all about perspective, right? You have a natural range of vision. It starts at your peripheral vision, and it goes out to, are you an artist?
I am.
What is this called?
Parallax?
And the vanishing point,
A vanishing point. Okay.
right? Your peripheral vision goes out to your range of vision. That pinpoint is the vanishing point. That's what you're seeing. Because all you got to do is take your camera with a nice telephoto lens and zoom in. And did your camera reach over the curve and grab that ship and pull it back up? No, it didn't. It just extended your natural range of vision. It's indisputable, because that's the argument they used for curvature forever. Colleges, universities, high school. Watch the ship go over the horizon, hull first, all the way down to the mast, it disappears. Sorry, I can just extend my natural range of vision, and it's there. And it's not a magical thing that my camera does.
So how do you explain that the sun is setting right now in Eastern Europe?
You have to look at the model of the flat Earth.
Just explain the
I would have to show it to you. I'd have to show it to you, because flat earthers don't believe that the obviously, right, when you begin to dig down, moon landings are fake, flat Earth, all this, you start to peel back the layers, right? The conception of the flat Earth is that it is a disk surrounded by an ice wall, right? So all the seas are held in on this disk by an ice wall. And there's photographs of these ice walls in Antarctica. You see these ships parked next to this humongous, like hundreds of feet high, ice wall. There's a guy who just went over it. He was in a kayak, and he went in on one of the glacial streams melting off Antarctica, and he's going off. He's plunging, right? One of these adrenaline junkies. Really cool. But it demonstrates the size of this ice wall. And the center of the Earth is the North Pole. It's not the top of the Earth, it's the center. Like if you have a flat disk with an ice wall, the center of the Earth, and coming down from that, there's like, then you wouldn't be able to circumnavigate. Yeah, circumnavigation can happen on a circle, or it can happen on a sphere. Circumnavigation is not a proof of a sphere. It's just proof that you can go around in a circle. And you can go around in a circle on a sphere, and you can go around in a circle on a circle. Right?
And you have similar arguments for 9/11 and for the moon landing?
Yeah, facts.
What
Yeah, we call them facts.
These are facts. What other theories do you have that might be considered controversial?
Those are really the big ones. Well, I'll tell you, the moon landing pissed me off. Because I was like I said, I was just a normie, right? I'm a guy who was educated in the same educational system as you. I believed all of that stuff. I believed 9/11 when it first came out. And then somebody points out something like Building 7, and you're like, what the, And then you start peeling it back. Now there's all right, God, do we have to go? All right, 9/11. Why 9/11? Why is 9/11 9/11? Remember I told you that Manly P. Hall said if you were to see sign and symbol, you would see a whole new world open up in front of you? 9/11 is just embedded with symbology. 9/11, there's a verse in the Bible, Revelation 9/11, and it talks about the beast ascending out of the bottomless pit. Revelation 9/11, boy, that's coincidental. You go to the 9/11 memorials, where those twin towers, have you ever been there? See those fountains? Mm-hmm. Those cascading fountains? Cascading into black abysses, going down like a bottomless pit. And then if you do the measurements, I don't want to get too far into the gematria, but gematria is embedded in all these things. They speak with sign, symbol, and number. And their numbers are 9/11, their numbers are 33, their numbers are 66, the numbers are 108. I mean, all these numbers have meaning to them. Why 33? 33 represents the perfect third. You'll see it everywhere. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's everywhere. 33 represents the perfect third. Well, what third? What does a third have to do with anything? A third of the angels are said to have fallen from heaven. It's a reference to Gnosticism, to Lucifer, to the fallen angels, to this conflict. It's their side telling you. And when you see 33 on something, it's like a calling card. Like the whole COVID madness. I could show you a video where, like, news story after news story. Oh, 33 people in Redding, California just got COVID. Oh, 33 people in Chicago, Illinois just got, 33 people in Houston, Texas. Just 33 after 33 after 33 after 33, whether it's 330,000 or 33 million or 33, the 33 is always there. And it's telling you, it shows up in I'm not going to go there. But so back to 9/11. What is Jesus? Jesus refers to the devil as the prince of the power of the air, right? Okay, devil's operating in this netherworld up there. 9/11. Those two pillars. They represent the original Twin Towers, which were destroyed 33 years from their conception, right? From beginning to end, 33 years, bookend by, again, the number 33. It's all over it. When you go down these rabbit holes, you learn so much, you forget more than you've learned, right? Because there's so much there. You peel back that onion, and you're just like I say, the average person out here, they have no idea what's going on around them. Nothing. So Jesus calls Satan the prince of the power of the air. The Twin Towers represented the separation of heaven from earth. It was like Atlas. Atlas was cursed with what? He was cursed with holding up the heavens, right? It was this separation. It's showing the Gemini twin of Atlas's arms. He's holding up the world. That's the symbology in the Twin Towers. There's a separation between heaven and earth. Towers come down, boom, that separation's gone. It's gone. This is how symbolic this thing is. Separation is gone. They memorialize it with these black abysses falling into nothing. And then they rebuild the tower. What's the tower called?
What do they call it now? I forget.
One World Trade Center. Why one world? Why one world? This guy, years ago, this guy said, he quipped, he said, when the New World Order comes to power, it'll be running naked to the finish line. Like, if you just care to even, look that way at what all these guys from the Council on Foreign Relations and the Club of Rome and Chatham House and all these organizations around the world, that if you just care to even look or listen to what they say, they're just plainly telling you we're doing this, right? But we're so preoccupied with Starbucks and Chick-fil-A that, most people don't even know this stuff. But so they rebuild it, a one world tower, and you look at the architecture of it, right? Sign and symbol again. And it's these intersecting triangles that form an octahedron. An octahedron is one of the Platonic solids representing an element. Fire, earth, water, air. An octahedron represents air. Jesus called him the prince of the power of the air, right? You are resurrecting, you're taking away the separation of heaven and earth. Twin towers have come down, very symbolic. You're reconstructing one tower, a monument to the prince of the power of the air. You're doing it on 9/11, right? You initiated the whole thing on 9/11. You're showing us the black abysses that this guy is rising up out of. And to boot, there is people who can make a good case for Jesus being born on September 11th in the year that he was born. Not December 25th. On one of the Jewish feast days, probably the Day of Atonement in that year, whatever it was, 0 year, or -1 year, whatever it was, on September 11th. And so it's like the duality. It's the mirror image. It's the mockery. It's Satan wanting to become God. And we're going to do it in such a way, we're going to do it on Jesus' actual birthday. December 25th, most people, like, most scholars even agree, like, no, it wasn't December 25th.
So
right?
Jesus was born on September 11th?
People can make a good case for that. You know, I can't be dogmatic and say he was born. But it makes sense when you understand Jewish fall feasts, especially the Day of Atonement, right? Because what is Jesus? He's the lamb that atones for the sins of the world, right? A little poetic. I got to say something about the Bible, too. There's no book like it in the world. None. None is as majestically poetic as it, right? How many weddings have you been to in your life? And what do they always quote, right? 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, right? Or Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time and a season for everything. When you begin to walk your way through the Bible, even the opening sequence, like in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, when you really sit there and read it, there's such a beauty and a poetry to it all. It's like, it's a magnificent book. There is nothing like it.
But you, in your second email to me, you pointed out that there's some other darker parts of the Bible.
Refresh me. I'm an old man.
Talking about the African-American.
Oh, darker. Yeah. Would you say, I wouldn't say that dark. I'd say, for those of you listening, right, it's not a racist thing, right? It's, if you go look at Ezekiel chapter 23, one thing about the Old Testament is the chosen people, right? And everybody gets tripped up over the chosen people. It's like, why did God choose people? Right? Why does Mark do what he does, and why does he call it soft white underbelly? Because he's branding. Right? That's Mark's brand. Soft white underbelly is his brand. And the Jews, or the Hebrews, I won't say Jews, say the ancient Hebrews, were his brand. He had to pick somebody. And if you make your way through the Old Testament and you're like, this stuff is weird, all these Levitical laws, like they're really weird. Well, of course they're weird because though he picked people out of the tribal people of that region, and he had to make them distinct. And laws that forbid you of eating oysters, that's pretty damn distinct, right? Laws that forbid you from eating bacon, that's setting you apart, right? There's all kinds. It was done on purpose.
I found your email. Do you want to read it?
Thanks. All right, so the Old Testament story about the Jews. I got to give the background before I read this, and it's about God's interaction with the Hebrews. I keep saying Jews, Hebrews, and God is always wrestling with these people because He's trying to get them to do what He wants them to do, and they're always not doing it. They're always wandering off, just like me wandering off or your MMA guy wandering off. It's human nature, and it's all about Him bringing them back, and He's just constantly berating them. You're just always playing the harlot with me. Always. Like you're running after another God. You're running after other things. It's this poetic language again. And so in this particular instance, this is Ezekiel 23, talking about Jerusalem and the Hebrews and their wayward ways with God. He says, "Yet she multiplied her harlotry in calling to remembrance the days of her youth, when she played the harlot in the land of Egypt. For she lusted after her paramours, whose flesh is like the flesh of donkeys, and whose issue is like the issue of horses." I mean, we understand what they're saying here, right? Right? This is like, I told Mark, I think what I say talks about big dicks in the Bible or something, right? And it does. "Thus you called to remembrance the lewdness of your youth, when the Egyptians pressed your bosom because of your youthful breasts." And so people would be like, "Oh, that's racist." No, it's not. And the Egyptians today, they are fairly light-skinned, but I'll bet you back in those days, before the Spanish or whoever came in and mixed with them, I'll bet you they were darker. And so they'll say it's inaccurate because the Egyptians are light-skinned. Yeah, but 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, I bet you they were dark-skinned. And so it's almost like a wink, right? Because we know that's true. I was in the military. Most of my platoon was black. Like, black guys are hung. That's a truth. That's not a racist comment. They are.
Not.
A point of pride, I would say.
There's
probably
always exceptions.
Among men.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the exceptions. I'm not looking. And then, so, we'll just read the other part of this email. And I said, I'll give you one more, Mark, for those who think Christians are prudish. And I say that because We're not. My wife and I have a great sex life. We just do. And I hope my kids don't listen to this, but too bad. I mean, it's true. Your parents just didn't have to do it twice. And this is a good thing about my wife. I told you a great thing about my wife. My wife has never, ever used sex as a weapon, ever. Women do that all the time. Not my wife. No way. She's so good. You should meet my wife. You would love her. Everybody loves my wife. From babies to old men. And it's a thing, I was jealous as a young man. Like, oh, God, everybody falls in love with my wife. And then I finally just got over it. It's like, you're going to drive yourself nuts. Just accept the fact that everybody loves your wife. And it's true. Everybody does love my wife. All right. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of your youth. As a loving doe or a loving deer and a graceful doe, let her breasts satisfy you at all times and always be enraptured with her love. First time I read that, let her breasts satisfy you at all times, I was like, I'm in. I like that. I can do that. I can live with that.
Oh, thank you. Tell me how you grew up. You, in the last talk, we talked about how great your life was in upstate
Connecticut. Yeah. Rural Connecticut.
And you had a good family.
Till the wheels fell off, yeah.
But there were no negative events, nothing that you went through?
Grandparents, both sets of grandparents. But they were of that, parenting was different, back then. Mm-hmm. And they were not without their historical issues. I'm certain of that. My grandfather on my father's side, he grew up in Maine. They were Scottish immigrants. His dad was a blacksmith and a drinker, not an alcoholic, but a drinker and a brawler, and they were poor, and so all those things kind of cascade down. You have all these effects of cultural effects. So we had to. Yeah, I had a good family, loving grandparents, loving parents, both sides. No weird issues, none of those things.
Mm-hmm. I just wonder where this skepticism comes from, or this belief in certain things that are...
It came from God calling you. Well, are you saying skepticism of like...
Well, like the moon landing, 9/11,
where does it come from?
Earth being flat.
It comes from... I'll tell you. So, remember when I said I would rather shoot myself than not know the reason why you did this, right? I think that impressed God. I think God said, this guy's serious. He wants to know the truth. He wants to know what it is. And I do. I want to know the truth. So here's one that'll put you on a spin. There was a, do you know what the Zapruder film is?
Yep.
Abraham Zapruder, right? JFK. Oh boy, I got a theory about JFK.
I'm sure you do.
Oh, this is a big one. This will get the tongues wagging. All right, Zapruder film. Lots of problems with this Zapruder film. People have picked that apart. The whole scenario. Of course, he goes through Dealey Plaza is a Masonic plaza, right? The Masons are they got their fingerprints everywhere. One of my as a by thing here. One of my hobbies is when I travel is I walk through cemeteries and photograph tombstones because they're fascinating. And nobody goes to cemeteries. I'm always there by myself. Mm-hmm. And if you walk through, you can find, and I'm going to show you one later. Really cool. But sign and symbol, again. I've, photographed Knights Templar gravestones up in Vermont, all kinds of different stuff. I just love it. Go to Hawaii. I'm getting excited. Where was I going? JFK.
Who shot JFK?
We'll get to that. Oh, conspiracy. Why do you think the way you do? Why do you think the way you do? Because I want to know the truth. No matter where it leads, I want to know the truth, and I am not afraid of looking at both sides of the coin. Right? When somebody tells me not to look, that's probably where my daughter gets going off to Honduras. Like, I'm going to do it. If you're telling me not to do that, you're telling me to do that. Right? So if you tell me, oh, dude, that's a conspiracy theory, I'm going to be like, oh, I can decide that for myself. Thank you very much. So anyway, There was a video out there. Interestingly, it was out, and then it got manipulated, and then it came back, and you could see it. But the video was Jackie killed JFK. And this is after I've been down the rabbit hole for a long time, looking at false flags and 9/11s and everything, you know. And I'm like, oh, come on. He's like, I'm willing to look at anything, but this is pushing it. And then that little voice inside me said, why? Why is it pushing it? Why can't you look at that? Why can't you review that simple, 2-minute video and see what they have to say? I said, I don't think that was the voice of God. I think that was my voice inside of me, my little voice talking to myself. And it's like, yeah, why can't I? It's like, what's the worst that can happen? So you look at this Zapruder film. JFK's going, the motorcade's going down. He gets shot. Boom. He slumps forward. He's on the right. Jackie's on the left. Jackie's right arm goes around his shoulders. Her left arm goes under his chin. Boom! His head flies backwards. I was like, holy shit, Jackie killed JFK. That's what it looks like. No, I don't necessarily think that. But it looks like that. You can make the case that she was somehow involved. And then when you know about JFK and his philandering and all that, you know, you can stretch it to say, you know, why wouldn't she, right? Why wouldn't she if the government wanted them gone and all that? And then she does the odd thing of climbing on the back of the car, right? The iconic scene of her scrambling to get on the back of the car. And what's the official narrative? Come on, you know this.
I don't know.
She was going to fetch a piece of his skull, right? Right? Your husband.
I don't know.
Your husband, the president of the free world, right? But your husband just gets shot right next to you. And you have the presence of mind, like you're facing forward and these shots are fired. You don't even know what the hell is happening, right? I mean, this is a murder scene. And you're the wife. And, I'm just going to go fetch that piece of skull, right? But at the same time, what happens simultaneously is that there's a Secret Service agent. She's going this way, he's coming this way, he's hopping on the back of the car. So the theory is that she was passing him the gun that she used to shoot him with. I don't know why you didn't just drop it in the thing. You know, there's holes in all that. I'm not saying I buy that, but I'm saying that you can't discover the truth by not looking, right? You have to look. You can't take somebody's word for it, especially...
No, I admire your ability to think for yourself.
Yeah, especially politicians.
I do the same thing, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
And it's dark in Australia right now.
What's going on in Australia?
It's dark. It's fucking nighttime.
Oh, dark.
And the Earth is flat.
Oh, we never got around. I have to show you the modeling of that and how that works.
Just tell me. It's like
can't.
if the Earth is flat, it'd be light everywhere.
No, that's not true. Because the sun is closer in. The sun and the moon are within our atmosphere. They're within the dome that is over top of us that keeps us in. That's why you can't go to the moon, because you can't get outside the dome. All right, let's go down the moon things. How long has it been since we've been on the moon?
68, right?
Yeah, I think maybe the last one, that was the first one. Last one ended in 72 or something,
Maybe,
right?
yeah.
12 missions maybe total. Edmund Hillary, you know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
First guy on Everest.
Yeah.
Big deal for humanity. Tallest mountain in the world. What happened after that? A beeline to Everest. So much so that it's like overused, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's human nature. You make a great accomplishment, you want to follow. So you're telling me that after the moon landing, every first world country in the world, Germany, Japan, South Korea, China, name them. Name all the countries who had the money, the technology, the wherewithal to go to the moon. And they're just like, nah. U.S. did it. Good enough. Right? Does that fit? Give me a break. And then there's all, yeah, for photographer, if you were ever to look in this, it's the shadows thing. It's a lot of things. But they're saying it was just, you as a photographer would be able to, if I can find it, I will send you some of the criticisms of the camera angles and the shadows, the intersecting shadows. This shouldn't be. And that's what people first caught on. They're like, wait a minute. And the lunar lander itself, the lunar lander looks like a...
And what is the purpose for deceiving the world about the Earth being flat, about the moon, about 9/11, all that kind of stuff? JFK?
Well, if we're looking at the world as not accidental, right? We can look at history and you can say everything was accidental. Just one thing led to another. Boom, 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 boom. But when you peel back the layers, you're saying, well, not quite. Things were initiated, like Pearl Harbor, right? It's a fairly well-known fact that they knew about Pearl Harbor before it happened, and they let it happen. Like, this is not even conspiracy now. Like, this is mainstream. And they let it happen, and what was the effect of Pearl Harbor? It pushed us into a war that we didn't want to be in. But our government knew about it, could have prevented it, but didn't. My grandfather, who was on the USS Iowa, talks about this in his memoirs, like saying, we knew about this. History is not accidental. History is conspiratorial. History is a narrative being run. It's Gnosticism versus Christianity, and the Gnostics are running all these things. Now, what is the net effect of it? I think that they're building a narrative with the whole alien agenda. Like, where did that begin? Well, that begins with like H.G. Wells and War of the Worlds. And from then on, you're building this narrative of outer space and aliens and other worlds and all sorts of things, which if we live in a dome and you can't get out of it, is just simply not true. Like, it's just not true. So why would they go to all that time and expense? Let me go to my JFK theory. Boy, this is a big one. Golly. Should I say this one? I don't think JFK died. I don't think he was killed. I don't think his brother was killed. JFK gave a speech to, like, this gathering of reporters. It was the national something or something of newspaper reporters or something like that, right? And he gave this speech, and he's just saying some stuff about the country, and then he drops this bomb, and he says, "For we are surrounded by a monolithic conspiracy." You should listen to this thing. He's like, JFK is saying we got a monolithic conspiracy going on in this world. And if you back all the way up to Woodrow Wilson, there's like powerful men have said this throughout history. Woodrow Wilson said, there is a power, in effect, he said there's a conspiracy at work in this world that is so big and so powerful that men dare not breathe above a whisper in condemnation of it. These are the insiders telling you this. So my theory about JFK is that the Kennedy guys seem like good guys. And incidentally, this is an aside, my grandfather in his memoirs, he was a swinger, he was a player, loved women. And he used to hang around New York City a lot, and he would date all these Irish women. And one of the girls he dated, her cousin worked on the Kennedy estate, and my grandfather went up and he walked JFK around the estate holding his hand, like walked him as a toddler. It's just, it's an odd aside. Anyway, the Kennedy boys, I think they were good men. I think they were who they were. They weren't Christians. They weren't devoted Catholics. They didn't have a moral code. They were, New England, upper class, white, privileged guys who do what those guys do, right? They're going to cheat on their wife, and they did. They had their shortcomings. But generally, I think they were good guys. And this will blow some people up here. You're trying to sell that we can land on the moon, and we can't, right? Let's just take that as at face value. If we live within a dome, and the moon is not what you're saying it is, right? It's not terra firma. It's something else. And you should do some photography of the moon up close, and you'll be like, I don't know what the hell that thing is. Like when it's going through its phases, and you photograph like the edge of it, like the unfolding edge, you'll be like, what in the hell is going on there? I mean, it is not terra firma, and I'm not telling you I didn't even know what it is. I have no idea what it is. Anyway, but they're selling the idea that men can go on the moon and then go to outer space. How do you sell that? How do you sell such a fabrication? I think in part, the Vietnam War, you sell it because you bring people into a low, right? And you're trying to, right? If you want a rabbit, right, you ask for a pony. So you bring. I don't know if that's a good analogy, but you send people into this deep abyss, into the deep darkness, and then you give them a light to go to. And I think, in part, there's another reason for the Vietnam War that I won't talk about, but that's part of it. And I think they told the Kennedy boys that. And I think they said, we're going to initiate this war because we need this dark, dark event in the soul of America so that we can sell them this light thing. And they'll believe it. It's a huge fabrication, but we need to sell them this. And I think the Kennedy boys grew a conscience, and they look and they say, hell no. I am not going to send a bunch of young Americans to their death so you can sell this thing. And I think them being Kennedys, they believe their own shit, basically. We're the Kennedys. We can do this. Bobby and John getting together. Hey, we're the Kennedy boys. I'm the president. You're the AG. If we come out and we say there's this monolithic conspiracy and we start talking about this, we can stop this thing. And where do you think that goes, right? No, you can't. You're not as good as you think. As huge as you are, JFK, probably one of the biggest names in all of American presidency, right? And so I think, but I do think that they cut him. They cut a deal. I don't think the guy killed in that car was John F. Kennedy. I think it was somebody else. There's a guy who made the case that it was a police officer that's kind of a lookalike to him. Presidents are known to use lookalikes, right? That sort of thing. And I think that they just made JFK, and I think they gave him an offer they couldn't refuse. Hey, nice try, not going to happen. And I think because their dad was so powerful, right, that he also had some pull and probably pulled in some. So, look, these are my boys. You can't kill my boys. I'll go to war with you over this, sort of that sort of thing. Probably some of those intrigues going on. And they disappeared him. But here's an intriguing thing, right? This is this guy who, in the conspiracy world, and he did this thing. You can't even find it anymore. He was like documenting like Jimmy Carter. And he did an age progression of John F. Kennedy, and he put it next to Jimmy Carter. And his thing was he was saying that Jimmy Carter, how Jimmy Carter, he's got that really thick hair, mm-hmm. and that part, that's his part. You are not going to change Jimmy Carter's hairline. And he says that Jimmy Carter would come out to the press room or whatever occasionally, and his part would be switched. And the reporters would ask him about why did you, and he wouldn't answer them. And in the age progression, JFK looks similar enough, and the part is opposite to Jimmy Carter's. I haven't validated all this, but this was his theory, right? He said his theory was he thinks that they, once in a while, just to mess with the public because they can, they would just march JFK out there. The truth in plain sight. And because it goes back to that photograph I was showing my wife about that stream that I found that was actually horse poop. Is they can tell you anything and you won't even see it. It's like truth in plain sight. They hide this stuff all the time, all this stuff. So that's my JFK theory.
All right.
That's a doozy.
That's a lot for us to chew on.
That's a doozy, isn't it?
All right.
You're going to get a knock on your door. You're going to say, Mark, you're not publishing that one.
All right, Tom.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.